Hey everyone, and welcome back to What's the Plan, the podcast where we dive into the matters of our careers in the architecture and urban planning field. I'm Haley.
And I'm Andrea. So Haley, what's the plan this week?
This week's plan is all about housing types by architectural styles.
This is another in the hotspot where one of us will be put in the hotspot by answering questions on a specific topic that we want to explore.
These topics include concepts that one of us are unfamiliar with, giving us a chance to learn alongside the listeners as the host in the hotspot teaches us all about it.
So as mentioned in the previous episode, this episode of In the Hotspot is the second of a 3-part series all about housing types.
So the last episode, I kicked things off with housing structures by residential building types. Now it's your turn to teach us all about housing types by architectural styles.
And if you didn't get a chance to listen to our latest episode 25 yet, I highly recommend you listen to that first to get the full scoop. And with that being said, here is In the Hotspot, Housing Types by Architectural Styles.
So first off, what is an architectural style?
Good question. So an architectural style is a set of characteristics and features that make a building or structures notable or historically identifiable. So a style may include such elements as form, method of construction, building materials, and regional character. So Haley, can you take a guess what form is?
Based on the word, I would guess that it would have to do with the geometry of the building. So whether the building is more angular or more curved.
That's one part of it. So form includes line, color, shape, mass, which is geometry, as well as space and texture.
Interesting. I didn't realize that color and texture would be part of that too.
And then for method of construction, this is typically heavy timber, masonry, cast in place, concrete, prefab concrete, or even 3D printed.
Wait, sorry, 3D printed buildings?
Yeah, so this is actually, I guess, an emerging new style or new method of construction where you're using 3D printers on a large scale. That would, rather than like how you typically imagine 3D printers would print out like plastic filaments or whatever, in this case they would print out using concrete. So the walls of the building would be like the computer would be like moving around and then the concrete would come out.
Right, okay. Thanks for clarifying that because honestly in my head I was thinking, is that structurally sound? Because I was thinking the plastic filament.
Yeah, so 3D printing has become such like popular or like mainstream that like you're able to do it on such a large level now.
Okay.
Another element of style is building materials such as wood, brick, stone, steel, glass, and concrete. As well as the last element, regional character. It includes climate, geography, topography, and site features.
Okay.
And most architecture can be classified within a chronology of styles, which changes over time, reflecting changing fashions, beliefs, religion, or even the emergence of new ideas, technologies, or materials, which makes new styles possible. And as a result, style reflects the society and history of that time.
Yeah, so what are the different types of housing styles?
So given how there are over hundreds of different housing styles dating back to like 2,000 years, it would be impossible to discuss them all. So therefore, I have curated a list of housing styles commonly seen in North America.
Okay.
And here they are in alphabetical order. So colonial,
right?
Contemporary, cottage,
okay,
craftsman, farmhouse, Greek revival, Mediterranean, mid-century modern, ranch, Tudor, and Victorian.
Okay, so if I counted that correctly, you listed off 11 different types.
Yes.
Okay.
11 out of the 1,000 possible.
Okay, so, well, with the 11, what are the key characteristics of each style, and how could we differentiate between them?
Good question.
So let's start off with the colonial.
So popular in the late 1800s, colonial homes are very simple. They're very rectangular, symmetrical structures that date back to even actually the 1600s. And they came about through different influences that can be further identified by the country that occupied the region at that time they were built, hence colonial.
Okay.
And these different types include English, French, Dutch, Georgian, Spanish, and even apparently American colonial. And that was a surprise to me as well. However, it is noted that it closely resembles English.
Okay.
So these structures would often have brick or wood siding. They had a medium pitch roof. And for those who don't know what pitch means, pitch is more so how angular or how... So typically your roof, it's like a triangle. So the pitch would be the angle of that roof. So a medium pitch would be you would have a sort of a wider angle or more obtuse angle.
Okay.
And a high-pitched roof is have a very acute angle.
Okay.
And these structures often would have, because they're very symmetrical, they would be they have pairs of windows on each side of the entry door. They would have typically 5 windows on the second floor, with as well 1 window above the entry door, just for balance and symmetry's sake.
Okay.
And overall, the key features of this style is they have 2+ stories tall. They're very symmetrical. They have a central stairway and a very formal look.
Okay. So next we have the contemporary style.
Yeah, so contemporary is a style that is often confused with modern. However, the two should not be used interchangeably, as they actually span over different periods of time.
Okay.
So contemporary actually refers to the present, whereas the term modern refers to a time period that has already passed for us.
Right.
And their confusion actually comes from the fact that many contemporary homes today actually incorporate elements from modernist styles, such as clean lines, very simple ornamentation. So people would often use the term minimalism. There is a very heavy focus on natural textures, such as stone, brick, wood. The color palettes are often usually neutral, with only minor pops of color within the interior of the house.
Okay.
As well as large windows, sometimes floor to ceiling. They could also be irregularly shaped. However, unique to contemporary, there is a heavy emphasis on local recycled building materials, as well as eco-friendly materials or technologies incorporated into the house.
Okay.
Yeah, so examples of like eco-friendly technology would be the use of solar panels on the roof, or the creation of a green roof, or a water collection system.
Right. Okay.
That like you wouldn't see that on modern homes.
Okay. So next we have the cottage style.
So yeah, cottage is a pretty popular term in Canada. So I'm gonna turn this on you and ask, what do you think a cottage style looks like?
So when I think of a cottage style, the first thing that comes to my mind is a lot of wood, a lot of exposed wood, kind of like what I would picture a cabin to look like, and just generally like very freeing to look at, to live in.
Yeah, so you're on track.
Okay.
This style was brought over from Europe, specifically in England, where cottages were actually homes to working class farmers.
Okay.
And however, in North America, it has taken on a new meaning, and a lot of people buy cottages to use as vacation homes, which is why in particularly in Ontario, we have this area called cottage country. And however, there are actually people that use cottages as their primary residences.
Oh, okay.
And key features of cottages are they're actually very cozy. They're charming, as they each have small individual characters or features that are unique to their house. So if you were to go to cottage country and look at a street, each cottage could look very different in comparison to some neighborhoods where like you need to have like a singular identifying or unifying image.
Yes. Okay.
And often they are built with wood siding and wood shingles, and then inside they have a fireplace, as well as on the outside they have a small porch. Okay.
So next we have the Craftsman Style.
Yeah, so the Craftsman Style was really popular in the early 1900s, from like 1905 to 1930, and they focus on the value of handmade, well-constructed architecture, hence the term craftsman, because a craftsman would craft the structure.
Okay.
And the reason why this came about, it was they were fighting against the mass-produced or cookie-cutter home developments that started to emerge. And as a result, key features of Craftsman Style homes are they have very beautifully hand-worked materials, exposed beams, low pitched gable roofs, so a very obtuse angle for the roof.
Okay.
They have tapered columns on their porches. As well, on the inside, you may find a lot of custom elements such as built-in furniture, exposed roof rafters, and a hand-laid fireplace.
So very much what you would imagine when you think of a craftsman home.
Yeah, it almost feels like a do-it-yourself kind of feel.
Yes, okay. Next, we have the farmhouse style.
So as the name suggests, the style is influenced by barns. And key features of them are often tall ceilings, exposed beam, a large front porch, a rectangular layout, and a central fireplace.
Okay.
And some farmhouse style homes have actually barn-shaped roofs. So, however, not all of them are, so like they're not as on the nose. However, like typically the details are very rustic. There's often a lot of exposed brick and stone, as well as very, I guess, washed wood. So like very gray colored wood because of wash from the sun and from the dust.
So cool colored wood.
And a style that has emerged from the farmhouse style is actually a modern farmhouse style, which takes on a more rustic look and combines it with the more clean lines and updated other features.
So now we have the Greek Revival style.
Yeah, so apparently the Greek Revival style is the easiest to point out due to their impressive columns that emulate those found on the Parthenon and other famous Greek buildings.
Okay.
And this style is actually inspired by Greek democracy, philosophy, and culture, and emerged in the US in the 1830s. So as a result, the key features of this are very large columns with Greek style embellishments, lots of moldings, lots of fitted or fluted smooth columns, pilasters, which are fake columns. They're actually just decorative and they don't provide any structure, as well as a cornice along the roof line, which is very detailed, I guess, like squiggles, people could say, along the roof line. So the roof is not just like, you don't just have an edge, you have a little detail underneath it.
So kind of like doilies, like if you were to cut up doilies and have them plastered around the edge? Okay.
Yeah, so because they're trying to emulate Greek temples, a lot of buildings in this style are often painted white or uses subdued colors, and they have a very grand front door and entrance.
So while you were describing this, there was a particular building that popped into my head.
Yeah.
Would the White House have a Greek Revival style of architecture?
So the White House and many other government buildings in Washington, D.C., they're not particularly part of Greek Revival.
Okay.
They're more so like neoclassical, but they have the same idea where they have this desire to emulate buildings from like Roman and Greek temples because they look very strong and they present an image that like, we are very strong, you cannot defeat us. We're power, essentially.
Okay, so it wasn't too far off.
Yeah, very close.
Okay. So next we have the Mediterranean style.
Yeah, so Mediterranean, they feature elements from Spanish and Italian villas. And since they focus on an indoor-outdoor living, they're most popular in areas with temperate weather like California and Florida. Which is why you don't see a lot of this in Canada. However, if you were to go to LA, like, or you watch Architect Digest of like celebrities showing off their houses, a lot of them have Mediterranean style homes.
Okay.
And key identifying features of this style are tiled roofs, often orange or red colors, very light colored stucco walls, a warm stone and wood, as well as metalwork on balconies and windows.
Right. Okay.
And because there is an emphasis on outdoor-indoor living, a lot of these buildings are either U-shaped or they orient around a central courtyard or fountain, which provides cooling and cross-ventilation, but also a space for families to gather and hang out outdoors.
Interesting. Now we have the aforementioned mid-century modern.
Yes, so mid-century modern actually emerged after World War II from the Bauhaus movement. Which is a movement that encourages students to incorporate technology into their designs, as well as emphasizes the need to create designs that could be easily mass-produced.
Okay.
And the reason behind the mass-produced element is that because in World War II, a lot of Europe got destroyed, a lot of people lost homes, and they needed a way to start rebuilding more homes quickly.
Right.
So sometimes mass-produced isn't a bad thing. However, when when you see places where mid-century modern has a very heavy presence, like Palm Springs, they can have multiple of the same design throughout the city, and it's kind of eerie.
Yeah, I can't even imagine thinking about like another house on the other side of the city that is exactly the same as mine, except it's just decorated differently.
And it's not just one home, it's like hundreds of homes.
Oh, let's not get me started on that, because I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why they're very beloved is that they the key characteristics are open concept. There's a lot of sliding doors, typically oversized, as well as transom windows to allow a lot of light. And overall, they have a very sleek and uncluttered design that meets an appreciation for nature, which is why you have these large windows and doors, so you can actually connect with nature both physically and visually.
Okay.
And they have a mix of natural and man-made materials, as well as they feature well thought out architectural design that allows function to follow form.
Right, okay. And now the ranch style.
Yeah, so the ranch style appeared in the 1930s, but their popularity boomed in the 1950s. They're typically one story, and they feature a low pitch roof, which large windows, sliding glass doors, large backyards, and open living spaces and attached garages.
That was a lot. Okay.
So to break that down, the reason why there are large windows, sliding glass doors, and large backyards is that there's an emphasis as well on the outside and connecting with the outside. So a lot of ranch homes are typically found in more countrysides where people would have perhaps like a farm, or they would have horses or a lot of acres of land that they could just like sit outside and enjoy from both inside the house and outside. So as well, similar to the Mediterranean side houses, a lot of ranch homes are shaped in an L or a U.
Okay.
Where you have a sort of a backyard space that is protected by the building.
Interesting, okay.
And something that's actually more interesting that emerged from the ranch style homes, and that is more common in Canada, are split level homes.
What do you mean by split level homes?
So split level homes are homes that have multiple floors that are connected with short flights of stairs. So technically, because they're connected by short flights of stairs, they are not actually a separate story.
Okay.
Which allows it to become or remain part of the ranch level of a single story. However, what they mean by this is like typically in your house you have a living room, your dining room, and your kitchen all on the same level. There's no stairs in the way, there's nothing in the way. However, in a split level home, each of these separate rooms are on a different like y-axis, so they're slightly either higher or taller or lower than each other, and each room is connected by like a couple of steps of stairs.
Oh. Okay, so would that be like, okay, so if it's only separated by a few steps, if you're in the lowest level, you would still be able to see the entirety of the higher level?
Yes.
Okay, so it really is not much of a difference, but just a few steps.
Yeah, so like even though like it doesn't visually seem that much different because the steps are very little, because you're on a separate level, sometimes it does feel like a different space, but at the end of the day it's all still one connected space.
Okay, it's just not very accessible.
No, not at all.
Okay. Well, next we have the Tudor style.
So the Tudor style was brought to the U.S. by European trained architects in the late 1800s, and they gained a huge popularity in the 1920s. However, a lot of the key features are late medieval, so it goes back even to like the 1200s, and even early Renaissance architecture elements, and which is inspired by Tudor style stone masonry, as well as timber framings, deep gable roofs, and classical leaded windows. And because of more of a, and usually they are very asymmetrical, and the best way to describe the Tudor style home is something that looks out of a storybook. So if you were to read like fairy tales such as like Beauty and the Beast, or even go to Disney World, they borrow a lot of Tudor style elements because it looks like you're in another century.
Wow, that's interesting. And now finally, we have the Victorian style.
Yeah, so the Victorian style is, I think, the most popular style out of all of them in Toronto. So I want to flip this on you and ask, what do you think are the key characteristics of this style?
Okay, so when I hear Victorian, the first thing that comes to my mind is Queen Victoria.
Correct.
So with that being said, I would think the style or key features would have to exude royalty. But I can't really pinpoint what features would exude royalty.
Yeah, so like you suggested, or like you said, the Victorian is a series of architectural revival styles in the mid to late 19th century.
Okay.
Named after Queen Victoria.
Nice, okay.
So typically there are 2 or 3 stories tall with a lot of ornate elements, bay windows, small towers, porches, a very steep gable roof, so a very acute angle.
Right, okay.
And also...
Very pointy.
Yes, very pointy.
Okay.
And brightly colored facades.
Wait, what do you mean by brightly colored facades?
Yeah, so a lot of Victorian homes are actually feature, I guess, wood porches or wood towers, all that kind of stuff. So those elements would be painted into like bright colors such as like purple or green.
Oh, okay. So it would be very clearly like artificially colored.
Yeah, artificially colored.
Right.
Or sometimes if they're more, I guess, neutral, you have a bright red.
Oh,
so in Toronto, red brick is really popular. So if you walk around like Cabbage Town, say, a lot of the Victorian homes have like red brick. And those are really bright.
Okay.
Although they're very ornate and detailed, the actual details itself vary depending on design. And as a result, there are different styles that actually come out of Victorian that have like more details or less details. So for example, more ornate styles are like Gothic Revival and the Queen Anne style, which is very popular in Seattle. Okay. Or less ornate styles that is like called the folk style.
Interesting.
So yeah, so within Victorian there are like subgroups.
Oh boy,
like,
okay.
Like I guess more detail, so like maybe exudes more royalty to you, and less detail to like exude more like humble.
Right, okay, depending on what your style is.
Yeah, what your preference is.
What your preference is, okay. So we've covered all of the styles out of your curated list, but out of that list, I didn't hear anything about mansions or McMansions, which is something that I hear a lot about.
Yeah.
Can you clarify what that is and why maybe it's not on the list that you curated?
Yeah, so before I share my answer, I want to flip this question back to you.
Okay. And
what do you think they are? Or do you think they are a style of architecture?
Okay, so when I think of mansion, I think of like a really big house. And it would be very grand, very like exuding a lot of wealth. But with McMansions, I would say that it would be similar to a mansion, except rather than having the same amount of wealth exuded, it would kind of be like an imitation. And in terms of whether it is an architectural style, based on what I learned today from what you taught, I would say it isn't necessarily an architectural style because it could take from a lot of the different styles that you've listed, and that doesn't necessarily factor into whether a house can be called a mansion or McMansion.
Yes, correct.
I am learning.
Yeah, so contrary to belief, mansions and McMansions are not architectural styles.
Okay.
They're made up of a combination of different architecture styles.
Yes. Okay.
However, the terms mansions and McMansions are more so in reference to the actual size of single-family homes.
Right. Okay.
So houses with more than 5,000 square feet are usually qualify as a mansion.
That's a big home.
That's a big home. And as a result, they often feel very large and palatial.
Okay.
And on the other hand, McMansions, the term describes a mansion typically built with little consideration towards aesthetics and design.
Okay.
So, like, as you mentioned, McMansions are more so like a hodgepodge of different architectural styles together, and they're put together without any thought at all.
Right, okay.
So, as a result, they look like they're very constructed from cheap materials and have a hacked together appearance.
Okay.
And as a result, they have been assigned a negative connotation.
Right, okay. McMansion specifically.
McMansion specifically, yes. And in comparison to mansions, McMansions are actually smaller than traditional mansions.
Right.
Usually measuring in at like 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. And which is why they're also most often employed by developers in the suburbs, furthering the disdain of suburbia.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the houses that we grew up in the suburbs, it's like it looks like a bunch of different things because it is a bunch of different things.
Right.
And that's why sometimes it can feel a bit unsettling.
Okay, that clears it up.
Yeah. So, now that we learned all about the different styles, I want to ask you, what is your favorite from the list?
Well, you did list a bunch of different styles, 11 to be exact. So there is a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
But from where I stand right now, without having seen any of the different styles since learning about them, just purely based on their description, I kind of want to say that my favorite would be the Craftsman Style, just because of who I am as a person. I like to coin myself as quite the handy person.
Yeah.
I like to build my own things, put together my own things as much as I can whenever possible. So I just think it would fit best with my personality.
Yeah.
What about you? What would your favorite be?
I totally agree. I think from this, like, the story of it, the description of it, I think the Craftsman is one that I appreciate the most.
Okay.
Because, like, when you come, in terms of architectural design, a lot of times I guess the most important thing to your design is the context. Where you are. Yeah. What you, like, who are you building it for, all that kind of stuff. So I think the Craftsman, it has the most unique elements that it caters towards whoever's living there.
Yes, exactly.
In comparison to other designs.
Yeah.
However, I think from a more of an aesthetic standpoint, I feel like my favorite is mid-century modern.
Right. Okay. Very clean.
Yeah.
lines.
Very clean. Yeah. Very very good connection with nature, and overall, just a very, I guess, simple design.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I definitely learned a lot today, as we saw as the episode went on. And I hope everyone listening to the episode did as well.
Given that podcasting is an audio medium, if you're interested in seeing visuals of the architectural styles discussed today, I will link an article from the podcast 99% Invisible that highlights a variety of posters and infographics on these styles.
Well, thank you for doing that. And so learning about architectural styles was the plan for now. Listen to our next episode to continue figuring it out with us.
Thanks for following along to this episode. If you liked it, please give us a like, review, and subscribe for more. Until then, follow us on Instagram at What's the Plan Podcast for what the next plan is.